Good evening and happy election Tuesday. Today is November 4th, 2025. I'm going to go ahead and call to order the regular scheduled meeting from Marin Water's Board of Directors. Terry, can I please have a roll call?
Director Ranjiv Kush.
Here.
Director Diana Mayer.
Here.
Director Larry Russell.
Here.
Vice President Jed Smith.
Here.
President Matt Sampson.
Here. Terry, do we have any public comment on the agenda this evening?
There are none.
Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved. Second.
First and a second, Terry, roll call, please.
Director Kush.
Aye.
Director Mayer.
Aye.
Director Russell.
Aye.
Vice President Smith.
Aye.
President Sampson.
Yes. Moving on to our closed session this evening. Do we have any public comment on the closed session items?
There are none.
Okay, we'll go ahead and convene to closed session. Okay, good evening, everybody. We're reconvening from closed session with no reportable action. And with that, we will go ahead and move on to item number 5, public comment on non-agenda matters.
Yes, we have a few speakers. So the first one I'd like to call is Phil Sauter.
Good evening. Last week, I read an article that concluded it's agriculture rather than home water use that causes Californians water stress in times of drought. Some commented that since Marin doesn't have much agriculture, we don't have the same level of drought-related water stress that other areas do. But my experience has been that we do, in fact, go through stressful times here in Marin when our reservoirs drop and we have to cut back on outdoor watering and start counting minutes in the shower. In my opinion, looking at lawns as an agricultural crop isn't that far-fetched. I found it useful to look at the seasonal water requirements of other crops, like soybeans, which are 10 to 26 inches per season, cotton, which is 20 to 30 inches per season, and lawns, which I think are 20 to 30 inches per season, assuming 1 to 1.5 inches a week for 20 weeks. So if an acre of land, lawn uses an average 24 inches of water over a 20-week season, or 2 acre feet, that's 772,000 gallons of water in 20 weeks, which is equal to 5,500 gallons a day for a 1 acre lawn, and more if it's overwatered and less if it's smaller. Director Russell's friends, $14,000 bi-monthly water bills do in fact reflect 5,000 gallons of water a day. So large lawns, I think, rank right up there with other thirsty crops like cotton. The district's long-term core commitment is providing safe, reliable, high-quality drinking water to its customers. Over the years, we've shifted more than half our residential water supply outdoors. Rather than our 80,000 acre-feet of storage taking us through a 4-year drought, we're down to about 2 years. So I think the district's water use profile does contain an agricultural component, which is a crop of lawns, not native to Marin's climate, that will become increasingly costly and unsustainable. The reason it works now is because every Marin Water customer subsidizes its cost by paying for new supply sources and infrastructure for potable water for lawns. It may be time to ask what it costs to support this crop, whether costs are allocated equitably to those who grow it versus those who don't, and what risk it presents to those who don't want to see our reservoirs drain down faster than they would be if this crop were either replaced or irrigated with non-potable water. If a homeowner wanted to plant cotton and irrigate it with potable water, we might take a more cautious approach than we currently do with lawns. But in terms of sustaining our water supply, I don't think there'd be a lot of difference. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next speaker, Ed Jamison, and then Ms. Martha Davis.
3 years ago, an MMWD advised Jacobs that reservoirs needed to be maintained at a 30,000 acre-foot level, retaining a 20,000 acre-foot operational reserve above the dead pool level. 2 weeks ago, I learned that MMWD now assumes that reservoirs would be utilized down to the 10,000 acre-foot dead pool level with no reserve, substantially reducing the amount of necessary drought supply from Jacobs' error-corrected forecast. With this change, and assuming Jacobs' 25% water rationing, we would only need 9,000 acre-feet per year of new supply if turned on after 1 dry winter, or 12,000 acre-feet if supply is turned on after 2 dry winters, to avoid almost always worthlessly spilling water after only 1 dry winter. For 9,000 acre-feet of winter water, with its very high operating cost of $4,400 per acre-foot, that would avoid spilling as much as $40 million of water that would very rarely be used after a 1-year drought. The latest drought plan for only 5,500 acre feet includes 1,000 acre feet of questionable, unidentified operational improvements and is nowhere near what we need for drought security. It would require 45% overall rationing, likely with 55% rationing for single-family residences, killing virtually all of Marin's landscaping, including mature trees. ARCS 1's trivial 3,800 acre feet of winter water does not realistically address our drought risk. If the district has determined that winter water is the answer, it needs to be for about 9,000 acre feet per year or 12,000 acre feet if it is available. We are living on borrowed time and need to implement a complete solution as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Davis and then Ms. Marilyn Price.
Good evening, Martha Davis on behalf of the Nicasio Landowners Association. I'm here primarily to say thank you to Ben, to Paul, for our first meeting with the Nicasio community to talk about next steps. So it was a good meeting. We were sorry to hear about all the email troubles that plagued the agency, but we were able to amend the agenda. Thank you, Ben and Paul, for making sure it was so important to our community to not only talk about the long-term planning that Marin is working on, but also the immediate actions that are needed to try and address how do we reduce potential for flooding before these rains really set in. So it was something that we did talk about. These are not new issues. These are the root wads that are in the creek. Director Sampson and Director Cush, you both saw those things, and also the issues that are related to the school and the erosion on the bank, et cetera. We're very excited. Paul's going to be out for his first site visit on Friday. I think many members of the community are going to be walking with him, which is all very good news. And so I think we're firm believers that there's a pathway forward to deal with needing how we figure out the emergency permits. We're going to do everything we can to help Paul work on that. And we're just very grateful for this very first important step working together. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Marilyn Price, please.
Yes, I'll be very brief. And I also want to thank you for having this public comment period. And I just must say, I am absolutely in awe of the things that Phil comes up with. I read the same article about agriculture, and I've always known that agriculture was consuming most of our water, but never did I think about comparing it to lawns being our agriculture. And again, I just want to thank you for having this open public time that comments like that can be heard by you and hopefully carefully considered. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no further speakers.
All right. Someone's got a fan club. Moving on to item number 6, general managers and directors announcements. We'll start with General Manager Horstein.
None this evening.
Thank you. Director Mayor.
Well, I got to see Zoom Zoom. This, did I say that right? Zoom Zoom, Zoom Zoom. Yesterday with Holly Nadeau, who's new in water conservation. It was really something. Everyone should go see it. The guy is amazing. He plays every single instrument and he speaks Spanish. It was in a school in the canal. And so he did a lot of it in 2 languages. And he's a lot of fun and the kids just loved it. So it's great.
Thank you. Director Smith.
Nothing from me. Thank you.
Director Russell.
Cool.
Great. I wanted to just make 2 comments. One, the first one is a compliment on the insert for the bill this month on the creek notes, and then, on the watershed. And one of the highlights was the certification process we're doing for landscape architects. I'm wondering if we're doing any outreach to actually like irrigation supply stores in the county, things like that, to display that somewhere we can get some traction, potentially spread the word a little bit more for that, because I think it's a really good program moving forward, especially if we're going to be certifying these folks. The second was last Monday, the 26th, I had the privilege of representing this board in the district at the Association of Municipal Water Agencies conference, one of their leadership conferences in Texas. And the reason for the representation was the district was actually nominated and won one of the 4 gold medal awards nationwide here in hand for quite a few of the efforts that have been going on this last year. And it was really interesting, really great crowd to be in. I was very proud of the organization, especially when we compete against water agencies across the country. We were one of 2 to win this award from California, a total of 4 winners nationwide. The other one was South Coast Water down in Orange County. And the award is by the peers from the municipal water agencies. So people really with knowledge of how things work. But, they focused really, and I'm going to read it off here, but financial viability, operational optimization, workforce development, sustainability, resiliency, investment in infrastructure, and a whole host of other actions that we're taking to focus not only on our issues we're facing now, but also in face of a changing climate, what we're doing to prepare ourselves so that we can remain able to deliver water regardless of what nature brings us moving forward. And these are all things we are doing, I think, at speed. And it really is another thank you and acknowledgement to the customer base for allowing us and trusting us with a rate increase a few years ago to be able to fund this effort. Because without that, we wouldn't be able to make a lot of these advances. We wouldn't be able to do a lot of these things, and we would have not been up for this award. It's just an acknowledgement, I think, again, of the steps we're taking are we're in the right direction, and we made the right decision back then to do that. So thank you to the public, and a big congratulations to staff, Ben, for amazing work doing this. This is, representation of everything you guys are doing day in and day out. So hope we can display this with some prominence somewhere here at the district. And we'll move that on to number 7, board and committee reports. Does anybody have any board and committee report notes?
Yes. There was a planning committee on Tuesday, October 28th. 2 subjects were discussed. One, the redesign of the Castagna pump station and upgrade, and the change in scope that's occurred there. Staff is expecting to open the construction bidding process on November 18th and will bring the item to the board. Basically, what's happening is they were going to do both pumps, and now they're doing one, more or less. A public hearing was conducted regarding the Public Health Triennial Report, which is a document that is utilized to discuss the non-MCL contaminants, basically. So when you're not having problems with compliance, these are the other materials that are in the water. And there was a hit, for instance, on hexavalent chromium that was discussed. So there are some issues nowhere near the MCL, much lower than that. The drinking water meets all the federal and state drinking water standards and will continue to monitor and provide updates to the public through our annual consumer reports. These report this committee meeting and the video of it are available on the webpage. The other thing, which I assume you're going to talk about, was the WAC meeting on Monday, and I'll let Jed pick it up from there.
I was going to mention, I was able to watch the planning meeting, and very interesting on the hexavalent chromium.
Yeah.
We're seeing it on the fire industry side, prominent post these catastrophic fires. So it's just something to keep an eye on. Interesting.
Everyone else? Great. We had the Finance and Administration Committee meeting on Thursday, October 23rd. Staff provided an update on revenues, expenditures, and an update on water sales. It was interesting to note the correlation between lower water sales and lower water consumption. And I'll comment on the Sonoma Marin WAC meeting in a second, but our lower water sales and consumption are in stark contrast to their pretty significant increase in water deliveries. So we should be proud of what we're doing, and I think we should keep it up. However, it does have an impact on our finances, and with that said, we've done an outstanding job controlling expenses and staying relatively close to budget. In addition, we were creating a new reserve policy that will focus on our facilities and some of our workplace structures. And there will be a recommendation hopefully coming forward to approve that reserve. And we'll bring an update on our worksite facilities and other potential uses of those funds by the summer of 2026. The public may access the staff reports and the video on our website from the meeting that occurred on October 23rd. In addition, we had the Sonoma WAC and TAC meeting, the Water Advisory Council, which has about 10 of their contractors and Marin. There was a discussion and appreciation of the new 15-year contract that we signed together, and I think a very good positive show of partnership between our counties and multiple levels. They did elect a new chair of the WAC, who is the representative from Valley of the Moon, who did lead this meeting. They discussed, I thought, a very interesting multi-jurisdictional hazard plan and outlined all the different potential hazards from earthquake to flood, etc. And showed a low, medium, and high risk areas that they needed to be concerned about. It's something that I've been looking for a while. I really appreciated their data and their approach, and I'd suggest that we do something like that here. There was a recap of the Lake Mendocino water control project and their FIRO success. Larry, you were up at that event, and I appreciate you representing Marin going up there, which was, I know, appreciated by everyone. Really a remarkable effort without a lot of finances, just a relooking about how they can store water and create better supply in a very, very thoughtful manner. They also reviewed the biological reports, and everybody was pleased to hear that the Chinook salmon are seeing remarkable rebounds there, way beyond expectations, which was exciting. And then they approved the next steps for the Eel River effort. It was a robust meeting. And Larry, any other thoughts you want to add?
Well, I was a little interested in their budget issues. They are coming off of this stumbling with their budgetary efforts. Grant hasn't been bugging me lately about it, but you've heard about it. It's the fixed fee stuff. They didn't actually talk about that, but they talked about it without discussing it. And they're looking for a way to get off of so much dependence on sales of water. So, you know, it was hidden, I would say, in the presentation that they made. The guy was whining about it, Jake. And I thought that was kind of interesting that they weren't interested in actually discussing it, but just kind of laying it on the table without, if you didn't know what they were talking about, it wasn't very obvious. But other than that, things were cool.
Great. Thank you for that report, and just another acknowledgement of the facilities reserve fund that you guys are doing in the finance committee is great work. So nice job on that. Okay, moving on to item number 8.
Before we leave that, I was just thinking, I don't know when the FIRO, I can't remember exactly what date it was. It was like the Wednesday before the meeting, right? It was an interesting meeting, well attended. There were protesters there about Lake Sonoma, and a lot, I mean, like 300, 200 people standing in the road. And there was discussion. I talked to Mike McGuire about it a bit, but he was the MC, and it's kind of like I think McGuire should consider a second career in television because he just loves that. He loved this meeting. It was quite disappointing to me, though, that they couldn't figure out a way to get the Corps there, because the Corps was really the heart of what's going on. And I thought their conversation was funny at the WAC meeting about the document they handed out. They handed out a half-inch thick thing that looked like it said it was the operating contract, blah, 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 but it's actually just a notebook. It's blank paper inside. And it was a lot of water people there. So it was, I don't know that it was particularly useful without the Corps, because they're kind of the heart of the whole thing. But, you know, like I say, that's what it was. And I guess the Corps is under restrictions on travel, not the money side, because obviously Sonoma could have paid. I think it's beyond that. They don't want them representing the government and out and about. So that was a pretty disappointing thing, because they did unveil a very nice plaque that's on the reservoir now about the changes in the management of the reservoir level. Prior to FURO, what they used to do was a certain date, they would dump the reservoir and to make space for flood control. And now they're looking at a more integrated approach between water projections, rainfall projections, and the reservoir levels. So it's a more scientific approach. The part I talked to McGuire about was the risk side of it, which they haven't really talked about very much, which is when you don't make the space in the reservoir, and if you get overwhelmed, it could get a little tricky. Because this is, I mean, I can remember the Corps doing this forever, just dropping the levels at a certain point in the time. And, you know, things like Shasta and Oroville, the impacts they had on the downstream users from a flood control standpoint were pretty substantial. Places that used to flood almost yearly, and now they don't flood at all. So anyway, we'll see where it goes. I'm excited about it, but cautious, because it's like playing around with spillway elevations. It's tricky stuff. You know, when you need it, you really need it, and you need it then. And if you don't have it, then what happens? You know, so it's going to be interesting to see where it goes.
Great. Any other? Okay. Moving on to item number 8, our consent calendar. We have one item tonight, and that's the approve the meeting from the last board, approve the minutes from the last board meeting. Do we have any public comment on the consent calendar?
There are none.
Okay. Can I entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
Second.
First and second, Terry, roll call, please.
Director Kush,
Aye.
Director Mayer,
Aye.
Director Russell,
Aye.
Vice President Smith,
Yes.
President Sampson.
Yes, moving on to item number 9. 9A.
No, thank you, Terry. Good evening, members of the board. Mark Casray, Engineer Manager of Construction. Nice to see you all again. Yep. So item 9A before you is a recommendation to the board to approve a resolution rejecting all bids for the Marin City Phase 2 pipeline replacement project. The planning committee reviewed the project on August 26th, and on October 7th, we opened 9 bids. 4 of those bids were found non-responsive, including that of the lowest bidder. The lowest bidder, along with one other bidder, exceeded the district's maximum mobilization bid item, which we limit to 5% of the total bid amount. And the intent of this requirement is to prevent unbalanced or disproportionate bids on our construction contracts. The district has historically upheld this requirement. And in response to our evaluation of the bids, the non-responsive low bidder submitted a protest requesting that the district waive this failure to meet this requirement. This was Team Gelati. And so, yeah, they submitted a bid protest asking the board, or asking the district to waive their failure to meet this requirement as a minor irregularity. In response, the apparent low responsive bidder, the number 2 bidder, filed a protest arguing that the district should reject the lowest bidder and proceed in awarding the contract to them. So in light of this and the fact that we received 4 bids that we found non-responsive, we are recommending to the board to reject all bids and re-advertise the project. It is important to note that the district has a statutory right to reject all bids under the California Public Contracts Code and the district's municipal code. And rejecting all bids really renders these bid protests moot because there's no contract award that is under contest. So with that, we recommend to the board to approve a resolution rejecting all bids on the Marin City Phase 2 pipeline replacement project. And we're happy to take any questions.
Great. Thank you very much for that. Go ahead and start.
Did they know about the no load provision in the bid spec? I mean, I've had trouble believing July wouldn't know our standard spec pretty well.
Well, this was Team Gelati out of Petaluma. They're not.
I know,
com-
complicated.
Yeah, and it appeared to be a simple mistake, essentially, an oversight. They were, of course, aware of that after they.
Four people had the same oversight?
No, 2 people exceeded our mobilization
I
limit.
see.
And then 2 other people failed to acknowledge and sign our addendum.
Mark, I'm guessing that the bidding process doesn't allow them to, doesn't allow Team Gelati to go and make changes to comply with, you know, our requirement.
Not after the bid opening. That's.
And so presumably now they just have an opportunity to make those changes, make those corrections through the next round of bidding.
That's right. All bidders have that same opportunity. So should the board approve this resolution, we intend to advertise this Thursday for a 2-week bidding period to open bids on November 20th and come before the board in early December for potentially a recommendation to award.
Great. How long do you expect this to delay the project?
It's a good question. So the original contract had a contract completion date of late July 2026. And we added about 6 weeks to the contract schedule because of a longer than expected contract execution period during the holidays. So we added about 6 weeks and we're showing anticipated contract completion in September 2026.
And how's the communication been with the community as this is moving along?
And we've been under.
Outreach is rolling on this. We've got notifications going out to the community next week that the project is planning to start up soon. We've been communicating with Marin City Climate Resilience about their role in doing some door-to-door outreach. The delay after tonight will be following up with pending outcome with further updates on the project schedule.
Thank you.
Director Mayor.
Is the idea that you'll get a whole new set of bidders or that you'll just get a new process in place with this?
If I were to speculate, I would expect the same bidders.
I agree. You're
Yep.
not going to get new bidders.
No.
Hopefully they'll do it right. Is that the idea?
Yeah.
Yes, second chance, yes.
Perhaps the more interesting question is where they're going to move it to.
Well done.
How do you shuffle it?
You know, once it's loaded, it's kind of hard to hide it.
Mhm.
So it'd be interesting to see what they do, how they decide to handle that.
Mhm.
And the lowest, most responsive bidder was quite high.
There were a little over $400,000 above the lowest bidder. Now, the lowest bidder was unusually low. They were about $800,000 below our engineer's estimate and about $500,000 below the cluster of bids, which more closely resembled our engineer's
Who was
estimate.
that?
The second lowest bidder, Major and Gelati.
So another quality firm.
Yeah, and they were roughly, if I recall, 300 to 400,000 below the engineer's estimate as well.
Gotcha. Okay. I think that's any other further comment from the board? Okay, great. We'll go to public comment, Terry.
There are none.
With that, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to approve this resolution.
So moved.
Second.
First and a second.
Director Kush,
Aye.
Director Mayor,
Aye.
Director Russell,
Aye.
Vice President Smith.
Aye.
And President Sampson.
Yes. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you, board members.
Moving on to 9B, our water supply update.
Well, good evening, directors. Paul Cellier, Water Resources Director. I'm joined by Lucy Croy, our Water Resources Manager. and Lucy will be running us through the water supply update, which is a brief recap of water year 2025, just a good moment in time for us to think about that. And then getting through some projections as to what the year ahead might look like for us.
Trying my best. Oh my God. Good evening, Board of Directors, Lucy Croy. So tonight, we have a water supply update. It is the beginning of November. We've all rolled our clocks back, and it's a good time to look at the water year, as Paul mentioned. We'll also look at our water supply conditions going into the wet season, and then a forecast to end this presentation, this update. So starting off, it's beginning in November, but water year typically it runs from October 1st through the end of September, and really captures the bulk of the wet season at the beginning and runs through. And so it's a good time for us to look back and kind of see how the year was and how it compares to previous years. Water year 2025 was about 104% of average for Marin water for our reservoirs for Mount Tam. And it was remarkably average across the state, I'd say. It looked about 108% across the state. So it's good to see that kind of things, even though it's average, we typically spill in those types of years. So water year, we didn't have too many floods. There was no drought. It was, in a way, nicely average. Usually we see kind of highs and lows, so sometimes it's a bit odd even when you hit an average. This is showing our average of 52 inches a year. 3 years ago, we had about 75 inches over the whole year, which is about 140% of average. That was followed by 2023, 2024, which was 120% of average. And then last year, which was just above average. So having these 3 consecutive years, we've been in a good position in our reservoirs spilling. And now starting off 2025, as you can see, we're down at the red down here at the bottom. We're just on average. So all good news for right now. Let's see. This presentation was prepared over the last few days, and it was interesting because as I was watching it, I was seeing, are we going to get rain in the next week? And they kept saying, oh, there's going to be this ridge on the upcoming. They actually called it a pumpkin ridge, a pumpkin. Let's see what I had written down, a pumpkin ridge, because it usually happens. We see those kind of warm October evenings, kind of at the end of October. And then just in the last few days, they've actually seen an atmospheric river come up, and we're starting to feel it outside right now. And so we're expecting about 1.5 to 2.5 is what they're saying we could see over the next day and a half. So it'll be interesting to see if we get as much as we think we could.
Really 2.5 atmospheric rivers that caught together. You got the one early, you get kind of a half one sliding up, and then you get another one. That's probably more than half of the rain.
It's always impressive to look at our precipitation, the annual accumulation, because you can see the impact that atmospheric rivers have on our accumulation, on our runoff too. So we did have a pretty dry start last year in October, and then we got a little bit in November, but you can see that December and then a few atmospheric rivers in January that really kind of rolled us through.
Yeah, but I think what you're seeing is, right, what we're all experiencing is a compressed rainy season. You know, you don't see this wide spread out thing. You see same amount, but much shorter periods. So
very intense events too. So where that leads us is to above average reservoir storage. So it's a little bit hidden by the blue line, but we're just above 65,000 acre feet going into November. And our average line is about 10,000 acre feet below that. So you can see the last 3 years, We've only crept below that average line once for a short stint before we had some good rainfall. So it's been a very productive last 3 years, and we can hope that it continues that way. Also on the bottom, you can see kind of the opposite. So 2021, when we didn't receive rainfall throughout that normally wet season, and kind of what that did to our storage.
It's interesting. Chris Morrison approached me. Chris used to be on the board. He's the engineer. And I think he's prior to that a while ago. And he was asking me whether we would consider testing the mandatory conservation levels with respect to the ARC project. So I'll forward that to you. I haven't responded to him yet, but there's some logic in his argument. So told him we would mull it over.
It's an interesting question.
It is because of the change. You know, having that third leg on the stool changes things.
Right.
Potential.
Right.
Now, it seems to be a little bit anxious, a little bit overly optimistic, you know, to something that isn't even built, adjusting the response. And the last time I asked that question, which was maybe 6 years ago, it was amazing to me that how spot on the numbers were. We reevaluated the 40,000. And basically, I don't know where they got the numbers. That's not clear, but they appear to be pretty accurate. That they are about in the right place. April 1st at 40,000 acre feet. If you don't kick in conservation at that point, you have problems coming down the road.
And that's largely when the rainy season, we know by then where we're at for the next dry season, right? Through the summer months when we have the most demand and irrigation.
Looking at a map of La Nina recently, they were predicting that we're going to be lighter than that was the conclusion this map had. But maybe in a mixed zone, like Seattle was heavier than normal. We were in the map I looked at light green, meaning that we could be a little above, could be a little below.
We might just get to see that map in a few slides too, which is pretty exciting.
One of the slides at least.
Thanks.
So in addition to our reservoirs, Sonoma Water, as you can expect, their reservoirs are also above average. So they're also doing well to the north. And as Director Russell mentioned, they just updated and signed the control manual for Lake Mendocino. And this was a big deal, having the signing. And what it does is it allows for more flexible operating levels and how they operate Lake Mendocino. This chart I thought was a good opportunity to show kind of the advantage that FIRO presents. So the chart over here on the right is showing on the black line, this is actually October 2019 through 2020 when they were testing FIRO. The reservoir came down, and then through the winter months, it started to come up, and in that lower line, let me see if I can get my mouse, the water supply pool, when it hit the limit, that's typically where they would drop, you know, for Army Corps, they'd drop and keep it along this brown line. But with FIRO, they're able to look and forecast forward and see, okay, we've got this storm coming in, let's allow it to increase. They increased it all the way up to the top of the FIRO space, to the top of the flood control. And we're able to hold on to it at that point because they could see that there weren't any more big storms coming. So that advantage allowed them to have almost 20% additional storage just in Lake Mendocino. And this was one of the best, I think, charts I've seen that really explains the advantage of FIRO and the implementation of it. So it's great to see that they've been able to get that signed. I think, as we all know, it can be challenging sometimes to get the final sign off for a document like the control manual. So for Lake Mendocino in itself, that's about over 11,000 acre feet, just in a difference in how you operate the reservoir.
There was a very interesting speaker at that event from Scripps in San Diego. He's kind of the AR guru. This is how they introduced him. He was quite cogent in the way he presented the science behind this. and was an interesting cat, to say the least.
Marty Ralph.
Yeah.
Picking this year, 2019 to 2020 to test it it's interesting because it potentially, because it was
It was,
such a dry year,
yeah, it was ahead of the, yeah.
it sort of gives the best outcome for FIRO,
Mhm.
but also avoids the risks that you noted earlier.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's what worries me, is what happens if we have a late major storm?
Right.
That's not predicted. Then you get into the Yuba River situation, and I remember that dam wasn't even completed. And it saved the Yuba River downstream folks from flooding.
Yeah.
So it's quite interesting to see the effect. Yeah. And the problem, of course, is that all the reservoirs drop at the same time because they're using the same model. So you not only do you lose that water supply, you lose the next one and the next one. That's where it gets a little tricky. But I think it's a scientifically based sound idea. I just think it has some hidden risk.
So moving on to demand and potable water production. This chart, it's quite busy, but I held off on removing 2020 mostly because I still find it quite interesting to see the peak that we were at in 2020. So this is month over month demand. And you'll see that our most recent is October over here on the orange, and it's quite incredible to see the difference. This is actually a 25% drops compared to last year. From what I can surmise at this point, it's probably mostly due to us having a little bit wetter of an October to start with. So people turning off their irrigation compared to last year where we did start off a lot drier. So people still maintain their irrigation and whatnot. But it's about 500 acre feet, the difference between last year and this year. So that blue line. And this aligns with what Brett presented at the last finance. He was seeing about a 5 to 7% drop compared to last year, but that's showing billing and meter readings over kind of the summer months. So that's really the orange compared to the light blue through maybe September. So this October really hasn't been seen yet.
And Lucy, this is the actual production in October. It's not offset by 2 months the way that the bills. We're not looking at August and September data here.
This is as close to live as we can get.
Right.
And that's why we use it as a metric in addition to the billing, is because the billing's 2 months later.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all in all, with the rainfall we've received over the past few years, you'll see that our projections over the next wet season are still quite high. We have a pretty high likelihood of spilling, even if we are to have somewhat dry conditions. So the orange line on the bottom, actually I'll step back. So the black is showing our observed, our historical, what we've been observing. And we're down here at the bottom, coming into November, we haven't received much rainfall yet, so we haven't seen a jump yet. But moving forward, the green upper line is an average, or a median, so a 50th percentile of typically what we would see with that kind of runoff. And the orange line, the lower bracketing orange line, is a 10th percentile, so a dry condition. So once every 10 years or so, that's generally how dry, how much runoff we receive. So overall, we don't expect that we would need to be in the place where we'd have to call for conservation come next April. And then for maybe the La Nina chart that you were thinking about, this one, I think over time we found that these aren't always the most helpful or useful for us, but we still find them interesting. This one is showing actually quite typical La Nina conditions, because the orange on the bottom with both are showing kind of drier conditions as well as hotter conditions, and that's what you would expect with La Nina. There could be a little bit more rainfall expected in the northern latitudes, but typically where we are, there isn't as much impact for La Nina. Really what impacts us is atmospheric rivers, and that's something that's not really accounted for in when they talk about ENSO and they talk about La Nina conditions. So that's what we depend on quite a bit more.
Maybe that's true, and maybe it's not, you know, because surface water temperatures, who knows what role they actually play, you know, precisely. I mean, you know,
For how it
yeah, how it
precipitates.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all in all, our storage levels continue to be above average with the last 3 years that we've had normal or above average. And they are observing La Nina conditions, but at this point it's quite uncertain what that may mean for us. It could mean wet, it could mean slightly dry, but we'll hopefully get a few atmospheric rivers to keep things wet.
I mean, Lucy, this seems like a replica of what you showed us at this time last year with respect to the NOAA climate predictions. I think you said the same thing, right?
I think I did. I was trying to find the slides from last year because I think they were predicting La Nina last year. So it's been 3 consecutive wet winters, and I'm hoping we can get a 4th. So we'll see.
Lucy, thank you very much for the presentation and update and good news on that. We'll go ahead and start with board comments to my right.
Nothing, thank you.
No, thank you for the update. Always look forward to these.
Director Russell, any other further comment? Great. No further comment for me, just that it's nice to be in a good spot and have some time to plan for the dry years too. So full steam ahead on ARC as we have some time. So thank you for that. And Terry, we'll go to public comment on this item.
There are none.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Moving on to item 9C, Atmospheric River Capture Project Update.
And surprise, it's still us.
For one special tonight.
We'll speak in French accents. It's interesting, but it is just as Lucy's getting this ready. You know, you heard a lot of talk in the last presentation about being average, and that's generally not a good thing, right? You all high achievers, we all want to be above average, but being average in terms of our rainfall is really, really good. And that's just a reflection of how flashy the rains are. You know, you heard in 2022, it was 72 inches of rain. Our average is 52 inches of rain. So it's really good to be average in Marin as far as water supply goes. So tonight we have an atmospheric river capture project update for you, and Lucy will handle this one as well.
So fortunately, my mic is already on. Oh, I thought excuse me. That's
It's
weird.
really weird.
We're showing water supply on mine. Thanks, Terry.
Yeah.
Thank you, Terry. So now on to the Atmospheric River Capture Project. We'll be providing an update on the project, starting first with an update on that public outreach that we've been doing about the project in the community, and then give an overview of some of the field investigations we've been doing to support the design work, as well as talking about pump station facilities and the siting that goes with that, and finishing up with the project schedule and next steps. So for those that are not as familiar with the project, the ARC project, Atmospheric River Capture Project, is a project that includes proposing facilities that are 13 miles of 36-inch pipeline, going from moving water from the North Marin Aqueduct, shown. Colors are very different on the, I apologize, it's very hard to see. So the North Marin Aqueduct is the dashed line coming down. And so the proposed pipeline moves water from that aqueduct along the red line out to Nicasio Reservoir. And it also includes pumping stations, pumping facilities in order to do that. The proposed facilities would allow for the capture of excess winter water from the Russian River and moving that out to Nicasio Reservoir, where there's available storage during dry periods. And we expect that the dry yield is around 3,800 acre feet per year. And with future phases, able to maximize up to 10,000 acre feet. The board approved contracts at the beginning of the summer for design and environmental review to support CEQA. And so since that time, we've been working very quickly on the project, getting out in the community. We know that it's important for us to create awareness on the project to those in the community, and to also look for opportunities to collaborate with other agencies in the area. So we've been meeting with individual agencies to give them an opportunity to learn about the project, introduce it, talk about the benefits and why we're pursuing the project, and also discuss opportunities where they may have capital projects coming up, and there's ways for us to combine projects, or if we're digging in the street, we're only doing it once, and finding ways to kind of work together. So over the last few months, we've met with a number of agencies that are listed here. And one of the outcomes of those meetings has been a request to have ongoing multi-agency meetings. So hearing the same information at the same time, making sure that we all kind of collaborate and are on the same page. If somebody asks questions, they all hear the same answer. So we've actually set up our first kickoff for that collaboration meeting for the project at the end of November. And so we're looking forward to having that opportunity to just have everybody in the same room.
Yeah, and I would add, so one of the aspects of our meetings with some of these groups, we met with the Marin County Open Space folks who they're having trouble with potable water at Stafford Lake. The pipeline across the lake broke, and they've been trying to figure out a solution since. So they're currently trucking water in to the restrooms there. And when they heard about this project, they got kind of excited. Is there a possibility for us to share space in the same trench coming up in Nevada Boulevard there? So we're working with them to see what that would entail and what their options would be. And then we'll be bringing in North Marin Water District as well, because that's who provides their water for them. Maybe there's a meter relocation. So there's some interesting collaboration already, even at this kind of early stage.
And I think a bike lane impact as well. So
Yeah, there's
it could be
potential
broad.
that
Yeah.
There's a big multi-use path out there
Yeah.
that the county maintain, and it's in poor shape right now. And it looks like we'll be able to use that to put the pipeline in. So there'll be some, again, multi-benefits there. We'll have less traffic impacts out on Nevada Boulevard, but also at the conclusion of it, maybe some shared paving costs with the county. And if nothing else, the county will get a nice flat top multi-use path out of it. So I think some good sort of cross-pollination between the different agencies that we've met with already.
That's interesting, Paul. I have been worried about the level of disruption that this is going to cause. It's going out to San Marin, right?
It's going out from basically along San Marin Drive.
San
yeah.
Marin Drive. But,
All the
and
way
is
out.
this the area where there is potential for
No, that area, not yet.
Okay.
We haven't come across anything in particular there, though we have met with Novato City and the city council to introduce this, and we met prior to that with Novato City staff. So staff have been sort of assigned to be aware of the project, participate in that multi-agency meeting that Lucy has set up. So I'm sure we'll hear more later from Novato.
hopefully a few more wins for them?
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Keep you
Right.
informed.
So as Paul mentioned, we also provided an overview of the project to the Novato City Council at the end of September, which was a great opportunity to introduce the project, make sure they know about it early on, and make sure that we hear any concerns early so that we can incorporate those concerns or questions into how we go about the project. And another big component of this project has really been creating the materials in order to go with it and having the outreach. So one of the big pieces it actually has been having a landing page on our website. Adrian and our public information team has put together a great landing page for the project, which has been really helpful when we meet with these agencies to just direct them there, because there's so much depth of information about the project and also the complexity behind the project. You bring someone a project and say, here's the atmospheric river capture project, and they're kind of stuck looking at you saying, I'm sorry, what is their project? So it's been a great opportunity for us to have a lot of information available to everybody that we meet with, and make sure they understand the drivers behind the project and the work that's gone on for the past few years in order to support the project moving forward. So in addition to that, we've actually, this is showing the flyer that was sent out to residents. This was sent out ahead of field investigations, and it gives a summary of the project and what to expect. So this was sent out just last month, and over the last month, we've had some of our design team has been out there collecting geotech borings and doing preliminary surveying to support desktop work that was done ahead of time. So a lot of the work has been also working with the neighboring agencies and collecting the data in order to do the preliminary design. And then we've also had our environmental team going out to potential pump station sites to do very preliminary, but cultural and biological surveys at those sites. And this map is just showing also, it's hard to see, but this is the survey control points. So doing an aerial survey over the entire alignment. So that's underway. They're like about halfway done with the aerial and as well as the geotech. So we expect that to finish up over, I think, the next month. As we've talked about, in addition to the 13 miles of pipeline, there's 1 to 2 pump stations that are needed for the facilities for the project in order to get the water out from the aqueduct out to Nicasio Reservoir. So this map's showing 2 locations of where the pump stations would be sited, one near Stafford Lake, which we've been talking to North Marin Water District and the county. They have a site next to their treatment plant. So we're looking at if that would be a good location to also where we would connect into North Marin. And then for pump station A, that's actually closer to the aqueduct, the Highway 101 corridor. And so that's been a priority of the project, is looking at sites associated with where we could put a pump station that would hydraulically make sense for the project. So 3 of the sites that we've been looking at along the corridor are noted here on the map. And they all have advantages and disadvantages, but we're looking at kind of what would make sense for the project. Unfortunately, at this point, it appears that alternative 1 may be off the market and under contract, but we're still following that. So just giving an update of these are kind of the background, the siting that we're doing. And it's a key component for the project and making sure that we secure a pump station location as it feeds into the rest of the project, the design and the environmental documentation. Another component the design team has been working on is evaluating the hydraulic need for either 1 or 2 pump stations. As I showed on the map, we will need at least 1 pump station, and this graphic on the right is showing the hydraulic grade line. So pumping from the aqueduct up out to Nicasio Reservoir requires quite a bit of pumping power. And so we're looking at, do we need 1 or 2? And that's a hydraulic evaluation that's being conducted by the design team to look at
How much is the lift?
how much lift.
Yeah.
It's about 700 feet, memory serves. Yeah, it's a good lift. Yeah.
Yeah. So with 1 pump station, we sometimes exceed the 250 PSI working pressure. That's a bit less than ideal because it requires more specialty piping, more specialty valving. If we move to 2 pump stations, so in the first phase of the project, putting 2 pump stations with the second one near Stafford Lake, it would require more capital for building a second pump station, but we wouldn't need as many specialty piping and valves. So that's one of the components that we're looking at. If we are to expand the project in the future, it will require a second pump station. So going from 15 MGD to 30 MGD, regardless, we would need a second pump station. So taking that consideration into how we design the project now is what the design team's working on. And their initial recommendation right now is to construct 2 pump stations due to the ability to meet future project needs.
Yeah, it makes sense. Future-proof it now, so no one else in the future has to go back and try to redo it, especially if it's a real estate purchase, things like that. So
an update on the project schedule. This is a schedule that we've shown in previous meetings. with design and CEQA going through 2026 and construction starting in 2027, with the goal of operating by 2029. And at this point, we're full steam ahead on the design and CEQA. There's a lot feeding into the background of preparing the basis of design report, which we expect to have that prepared in January, February 2026. So in just a few months, as well as a notice of preparation for the EIR, which would be released at the end of January is what our plan is at this point. One of the key components, as I mentioned, is having a site identified and secured to feed into those documents and to the design. But those are the key components that we're working towards right now. So our next steps are to continue to work with the partner agencies and incorporate what we can into how we design the project, and to have the basis of design and the NOP prepared in the next few months and keep those on schedule, and continue to find ways to have outreach to the community and make sure they know about the project early, and we address the concerns into how we design and approach the project, so that we're not caught off guard later. So that's I think update of the project. I don't think there's anything else.
Yeah, that's it. That's it from us at this point. If you have any questions, we're happy to.
Happy to take them. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation and for the update on this project. This time I'll start to my left. Director Russell.
Yeah, thanks, Lucy. What are the key risks that we might face with respect to completing the basis of design report and the NOP? What are the factors that might delay that beyond early 2026?
It's a good question, and it's something we talk about a lot. Is what can we anticipate and how do we go about it for the project to make sure we keep it on schedule? Right now, our top priority is really identifying the location for Pump Station A. That will really dictate so much of the project from there on out and how we connect in. The pipeline from there on out is in the public right of way. And we're working with North Marin on Pump Station B. So it's really kind of the top priority is making sure that we move each step along in order to identify the right parcel and secure it to support the documentation for design and for the EIR.
Yeah, I would agree with that, I think. And I would add that it's just keeping your eyes open in terms of what you're hearing about the project from all of you, the contacts that you may receive, and things that are popping up from the staff that may hear at the different agencies. Again, the multi-agency meetings are not a one-way communication. So if we want to be plugged in and talking to the Nevada City staff on a fairly regular basis to make sure we keep our pulse on that. Similarly with county staff, I think we've set up kind of the mechanisms for us to do that. And right now, I think that the thing that we're working hardest on, as Lucy said, is Pump Station A at this point.
Because Paul, a lot of the concerns we're going to hear and the pushback we're going to get are going to be with regards to the actual implementation to the infrastructure development. But just focusing on the basis of design report, getting to that milestone. Yeah. So it sounds like confirming a site for Pump Station A is going to be the big issue there.
I don't know if it's a big issue. It's something that we just need to make sure we bring home.
Yeah. It's what we're prioritizing.
Great. Okay. Thanks a lot.
Director Smith.
Thank you for the report. I appreciate it. This is obviously a very important project for us. I think it's important for the public to know and all stakeholders that we're early in this process, that we're still investigating it. This is not a done deal. But were it to be successful, it could be significantly impactful for us. Our 3,800 acre feet per year is not insignificant. If we were to raise a dam and create 3,800 acre feet and it doesn't rain again, that's only 3,800 acre feet. But if we have a 3-year drought, that's over 10,000 acre feet, which is 40% of our annual usage, which hopefully will get us through a dry season. to when it rains again. This is a massively important project, but we're early. So let's be sure we are deeply engaged with all the stakeholders early as possible, that we have the impacted reservoirs, whether it's Nicasio or Suluhuli. It sounds like we're leaning towards Nicasio, that all of the stakeholders and the landholders and folks who care are aware of the true impact or lack of impact on this, on their precious space. That we're in deep connection not only with Novato, but all the other contractors in Sonoma, and that we go city to city like we did with our long-term contract that we signed, and that they understand the benefits for them, that this would potentially make us less reliant on Lake Mendocino and Sonoma reservoirs. And let's be, especially careful and thoughtful about the impact on fisheries in the Russian River. I think we will go through a deep environmental review. We're not going to drive anything through. We're not going to do anything that's going to be harmful. My early understanding is that it shouldn't be, but let's be double check and let's bring in any naysayers or anyone that may push back, and let's make sure we hear them out and hear their analysis. So I'm cautiously optimistic, and we are early, so people shouldn't get afraid and have issues. Reach out to any one of us or the staff, and we'll try to think it through. I'm hopeful. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Mayer.
How have we been kind of packaging this for North Marin in terms of that they'll get benefit from it too?
So when we meet with agencies, we're very upfront about the project and the benefits that are we see not only for Marin water but for the region. And there are within the drought resiliency benefits that we see for the region. We also see benefits for North Marin, in which they at times will backfeed water from Sonoma water into Stafford Lake. And so by putting a secondary transmission main through Novato, it actually allows them to have less impact on their distribution system. So that's a secondary benefit that is for them, in addition to the drought resiliency that we see for the region.
We do want to explore when the pipeline goes to whichever terminal reservoir it is, Suluhuli or Nicasio, potential for putting in some pumping ports there so that North Marin may be able to draw water out of the reservoir and back into Stafford Lake. And, they're completely really reliant on that link to Sonoma. So if that gets severed, they do have Stafford, but it's 4,000 or so acre feet. So this would just give them that much more resilience and kind of confidence in their ability to continue to operate under almost any type of condition, in terms of an emergency on the aqueduct.
In addition, I see this as one more very important giant step forward to show the region that Marin Water is looking out for everybody as well as ourselves, that we all benefit if we work together, that Sonoma benefits from this, that Novato benefits from this, and that Marin does as well. So this is I think it's a new Marin Water that is looking out for everybody together. And I think if we think it through with everyone, we'll all benefit.
I'm just wondering if there's, maybe I should whisper this, but if they might pitch in on the cost a little bit or something like that. I don't know if we've even floated that idea, or if it might be beneficial enough that they might even consider that it would be worth it to them. But I'm just thinking about kind of our huge costs.
We could chat about that offline, but they do have, Lucy mentioned a plot of land in front of their treatment plant, right, which they're offering up as a site for pump station B. So that's a really significant contribution.
Awesome. Okay.
In terms of sort of solving what is typically a very thorny problem, the acquisition of land for pump stations.
Got it. Yeah. And then I just wondered if you could just give a thought, if you could just give a real high level on how people are responding so far. I think North Marin has seemed really positive from everything I've seen, but are you getting any negative chatter?
I've only received really positive chatter, really positive responses from everyone we've met with, especially when we explain the background behind the project, why we're going about it, that it's a drought resiliency project and how it will benefit the entire region. So it's been very positive to meet with all of the agencies and hear their support. They also, many of them have lived through the most recent drought and understand kind of the dire need at that point when we were projecting that we could run out of water, not just ourselves, but how that impacted the entire region. And so it's been a tangible reaction in most conversations that they're supportive.
Great.
I
Thank
think
you.
they're much more concerned about the event that occurred in the landslide.
Mhm.
That's what Tony Williams has expressed to me, is that the benefit to them is having an alternative. It's not exactly an alternative in that sense. It's you have to kind of know it's coming. In other words, you have to buy the water, put it in Stafford, and then the event occurs. So it's not exactly like having a parallel pipeline, but they are very interested in that aspect, that they have a way of getting water into Stafford. They're well aware. I would not expect them to contribute anything financially. Not in that sense, not capital.
Right.
We've talked a little bit about other ways of helping, and I think there's some potential there, but I don't think they're going to step into the capital. They're much, much smaller than us.
That's a good point.
I'm guessing they fully appreciate what Jed just mentioned, in that if this goes through, it reduces our demand on Lake Sonoma and Lake Mendocino, which can become
Mhm.
pretty critical during drought
them.
years. So
Mhm.
it potentially, makes it a little bit easier for them to get through those drought years.
I'm not sure I would want to characterize it necessarily that way. That
I
we're-
agree with you there.
We want to have the ability to take the water while it's available during the winter. Otherwise, it's going out to ocean and we're putting it in storage. Well, we still want to retain our ability to take Sonoma water. Of course, we would have more discretion.
Yeah, I think
that
that, we
respect.
would retain that ability, but we may not have the same needs.
We would have the discretion.
It increases the supply for the whole region.
Right. Like if
And-
there were an
If
emergency.
you look at it as an overall,
Right.
it increases
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Thank you very much for the project, for the update on the project. And we keep saying it's significant, but when's the last time we've invested this much capital into a single project? Long time, so this really, when you say significant, it really means significant based on the investment we're going to make. But I also think it's, these don't happen that often. And so this is our opportunity to do what good government can do, and that's be collaborative, work in partnership, and find out ways we can benefit whoever the stakeholders are, because we're going to have an impact. We're going to be impacting the city of Nevada, unincorporated areas out there. And most of those homeowners aren't going to understand this could benefit my water supply. They're just going to see us tearing up their street for a long time. But if we can turn around and actually have some partnerships with the county, with open space like we're talking about already, and really see those through. There's a smart train station right there that's got a north-south bike lane that's going for who knows how long. If we can get an east-west corridor, things like that, I think are going to go a long way and really show that we're contributing to the benefit of the community, not just our own water system. So excellent work. Keep it up. Look forward to that presentation in January, February on next steps with the notice of preparation. Great. With that, any further board comments? Excellent. Terry, any public comment?
Yes, we have several. Phil Sauter, Martha Davis, and Larry Minikis.
Thank you very much for the update and presentation. One thing I've been trying to understand is the plan to store this additional ARC water in the Nicasio Reservoir and the implications of doing so. Unlike water from our watershed, which collects around the Nicasio Reservoir, the ARC water from Sonoma will land at the North Marin Aqueduct and then be pumped 13 miles west and eventually 13 miles back east, stopping to be treated along the way, where most of the water will be used in eastern and southern Marin. I guess the reason for sending it to Nicasio is that we don't have reservoir capacity anywhere near where the water will be used. But I recently learned that the Nicasio Reservoir seems to have insufficient storage, which prompted the former spillway raising projects. So I'm not clear on that. If we need to find a home for an additional 3,800 to 10,000 acre feet of water at the Nicasio Reservoir, does that mean the spillway project will need to be resurrected and perhaps expanded? I'm also not sure about the energy requirements of pumping that amount of water 13 miles west from the North Marin Aqueduct and then back again to Eastern and Southern Marin. I calculated that an acre foot of water weighs 1,400 tons. So the low end of the ARC project at 3,800 acre feet would require 5 million tons of water on a 26-mile round trip. And at the high end of the project at 10,000 acre feet, it would require pumping 14 million tons of water on a 26-mile round trip. I think the difference between Nicasio and the North Marin Aqueduct is about 100 feet. So maybe energy can be captured on the downhill run to make up for the energy needed for the uphill run. I'm not sure of that. It's just that so much tonnage is involved and the potential energy costs so high that I thought it might be worthwhile to look at the need and cost for storing some of the ARC water away from Nicasio and some in Nicasio, storing it closer to where it would be used. And again, there's the cost of the 13 miles of pipe from the North Marin Aqueduct to the Nicasio Reservoir. I think I've heard pipeline costs of $2 to $3 million a mile. And I wonder if not sending ARC water to Nicasio could possibly free up, $26 to $30 million for recycled water pipelines in areas in Eastern and Southern Marin where our heaviest outdoor use is concentrated and where large amounts of recycled water could be available. So those are the things that puzzle me, and I would appreciate a clarification on that along the way. Thanks.
Good evening, Martha Davis for the Nicasio Landowners Association. Director Smith, you really have hit the nail on one of my points today. As a community that's very interested in this project and we're a main destination proposed for the water, we would really appreciate having a briefing on the project. And I know you're just getting started, and I had a chance to talk with Lucy. So we're very interested in doing this, and just let's get this set up, because we know we all have sensitivities from this year. There's a lot of questions that are going to come up. I want to make sure there are no misunderstandings. That doesn't help anybody at this point. And I think I was talking with Lucy before you folks came in, that, one of the questions, you can see it on the presentation, that the kind of the very high level, we're talking about the water going to Nicasio. And then people say, well, how can it go to Nicasio? Just like Phil did. But also Novato did, the same question. How does this water get in there? And then you get the clarification, oh, we're talking about dry year. We're talking about drought. We're talking about when Nicasio is low. So this operational discussion, pivotal to everybody understanding what's the intentionality, how is this project going to work? Why do you think that you can get 3,800 acre feet in there or 10,000 acre feet? So it really goes to the heart of making sure that we don't have crossed wires, making sure that we're really talking to one another about what you're proposing. And then I would ask that in your written materials, in your presentations, you're very clear about this. The high level creates questions. Specificity in writing in your presentations will help everybody understand what we're talking about, and making sure that we're not, again, having misunderstandings or getting out of alignment with one another. So that's my request. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Minikis?
Martha, thank you. I mean, those are great comments. I think we all agree. And I want to thank staff for a clear update on the Atmospheric River project. And it's encouraging to see it moving forward from concept to design and staying consistent with the timeline from earlier projections. What stands out in this update is a shift towards 2 smaller pump stations, which instead of one high pressure facility, for the reasons that were expressed, this seems both practical and forward moving. It's a good step forward. I do have one quick question. In the earlier projections, in the earlier design drawings, we talked about going to Nicasio first, and then later going to Suluhuli, first, and then coming back, and later in a later step going to Nicasio. This is now reversed, and there's really no discussion in this presentation about what is going to happen with Suluhuli. It'd be interesting to know, is Suluhuli still part of the discussion. I know we're still in early design phase here, but noticing that it wasn't on the map this time leads to some questions at this point. Thank you so much and good evening.
Thank you. There are no further speakers.
Great. Thank you very much for the update. Moving on to item number 10, future board and committee meetings and upcoming agenda items. We'll start with upcoming agenda items. Do any board members have any? Great. Moving on to future meetings and committees.
Good evening. This Friday, there are two external meetings, the NBWA, the North Bay Watershed Association, as well as the Lagunitas TAC, both starting at the same time at 9 o'clock. Next Thursday at November 13th at 9:30 is our actually duly noticed planning committee meeting. We're not having one at the end of this month because it's the Thanksgiving week. Tuesday, November 18th, we'll have our second board meeting of the month. Following that same week is the FAC meeting, just the committee meeting, Thursday, November 20th at 9:30. And that's all I have for now.
Great. Thank you very much. With that, we'll go ahead and adjourn.